Welcome back to the Sound for More channel. It's Leo speaking. Today I'm going to introduce you to the Quick Sampler. It's going to be quite a long tutorial, so I hope you enjoy. Before I continue, I would like to remind my viewers to subscribe as it helps with growing the channel. Thank you very much. So we are inside Logic Pro for iPad on an iPad Pro M1. Let's click on Create Project and let's select Tracks. Okay, so here we are. Let's select a MIDI track, and we have a simple MIDI track with a default patch, as you can see here from the plugin editor. So now let's replace that patch with a Quick Sampler. So we scroll down, we go to Sampler, and we select Quick Sampler or Single Sample. Okay, and that is loaded now. As you can see, the first thing you notice is that it says here, drag a sample or loop here. You have adjustment for volume and tunes, but you have much more inside it. So let's open the browser and let's open loops. And that is one way that you can do. You can click and drag and drop a sample there. You can see you have loaded that sample. Now let's close that browser. Let's double click on the sampler. And you can see that it has loaded. So let's maximize the view. Okay, you can see that it has loaded, of course, inside the Quick Sampler. So the loop is actually there. But now let me show you how differences in terms of loading that loop. Let's go back to the browser and let's redo it. Let's change the loop to something else. As I move to the Open Quick Sampler, it gives me two options. The original one is to load the loop. In this case, it could be a sample using original tuning, loudness, looping, and length. Or you can ask Logic Pro to actually optimize the tuning and loudness, search for loop points, and also to remove anything regarding silence at the end of that. So let's select original. And as you can see, it has loaded that again. Now, another way to do that is to go here on this menu, click on the arrows up and down. You can see the previous one which have been loaded. You can rename the current file, but you can remove it as well. And you can keep going removing the file until you get to a point where you have no audio file loaded. And then of course you can click on it again, select the browse samples, and it will open up again that browsing samples, but not loops. Of course, you can go back here to the arrow and select the loop. But let's say that we select this airy piano, drag and drop. Again, asking me to the choice that I want to take. For now, I stick to original. Okay, and here we have loaded the airy piano as original. Let's close the browser now. Now let's bring up the file up from the bottom, like so. And we do slide over like so. And now what we can also do is select a track externally, click and hold, and drag and drop. Again, you have this the two options, original or optimize. And again, let's close this one now. And we have loaded now a loop. Okay, so different way to actually do it. Now, let me show you what happens when you do select optimize, right? So let's open again that file up view, like so. And let's select a drum loop, like so. And let's select optimize. And what you see, and let's close this view now, you can see it has selected also a loop, of course, and it has done some optimization in terms of selecting the loop, removing anything that looks not right, like cropping silences, check the length, etc., etc. Okay, so it works actually quite nicely. So you have a different way to actually load samples and loops. You can clear the history here as well. So you go back up here and you have only the current one, right? Again, let's remove that sample. Now let's click here and select browse sample again. And let's go to loops, like so. Let's select this first loop and let's keep it as original. Okay, original tuning, like so. Okay. Now we have different views as you can see, the first one is classic. We have a one shot and we have slices as well, also the slice mode. So we have already seen these this menu here, of course. We can snap. You have different selection to snap here. You can snap zero crossing, transient, and note, which I will explain when we go to the slice mode, but also bit level, which is quite nice. Now, let's stay on classic view, okay? So these yellow symbols are the marker here on the left-hand side for the start and on the right-hand side for the end of the loop. Click and hold and you move. And you can define a different loop, okay? And here it gives you information about the loop start and length and crossfade, which you can also do. Let's click on the X here. The reason that there is a loop is because you have an option here where it says loop and you have selected that it can go forward, reverse, or ping pong, okay? And this is quite an interesting one, which I'll show you in a moment. But let's say we don't want to do any loop. You click on loop, and then you don't have any loop available. Now, when you don't have any loop available, you have a much clearer view, and I'm going to stick to that to show you that you can do fade in and also fade out for your sample. And you can click here where it says C3 to play the sample. So you can hear the fade in and also the fade out. Of course, you can remove it as you like. Now, we are in classic mode, which means, and let's click at the exit here, that when I click on C3, it works based on the amplitude here envelope, which you can see you have a graph here underneath. So unless I hold to have the sustain, as soon as I let go, it will follow the release setting here, which at the moment is very short. That is why the play of the sample stops immediately. Other things you can do here, you can change the start here and the end of the sample, which is really nice. And then, as I mentioned, you have C3 here, the note, which you can use to preview the sample, or you can click here to play. And it works a similar way to click here on the C3 note name. Okay. So the other thing I want to mention is here you can click and hold here. You can resize up and down, which is really nice because you can have a bigger view to edit your waveform, which becomes really, really handy. Okay. The other thing, again, here you have, actually, let me cover this one first. You have a root note, which will be the root where the original sample will be played at. And you can also make adjustment, fine tuning here in synth. You can have playback, forward or reverse. Reverse is very nice. So I like that reverse is already available there. And then you can set the loop in. So no loop or forward, it will play in this way, right? And it will keep repeating from this start of the loop to this end of the loop where the two markers are. Okay, and it will go in forward mode here, okay? Or you can set it in reverse, so it will start to play. And when the loop starts, it will go in reverse mode. Let me show you. Or you can have alternate. Really nice that you have all these options. Now, for the last option, it says play to the end on release. Now, as you can see, the loop is still in alternate mode. So let's set it to forward for simplicity. Now, if I click and let go when it is in the middle of the loop, look what happens. Nothing stops straight away. It should be continued to the end. The reason that it doesn't is because underneath here, you have you need to adjust the amp envelope. And by the way, let's see if we can remove these mini plugin tiles so we have more space here. So if you click here, you can adjust this point here, which is the release. Now you have a longer release, which means when I preview and I let go in the middle of the loop, it will continue till the end of playing the sample. As you can see, I moved the mouse from the C3 names of the note here, and the sample continued to play till the end of the sample length, which is really nice. But that was possible because I made the release here of the amplitude envelope, of course, longer. Otherwise, it will cut the sound. Of course, you can click on the close here button to, as I just showed you here, to close. Okay, so here, additionally, where you have these two axes, you can do crossfading between the start and the end of the loop, which is really nice because it means you don't hear any clicking noises between start and end of the loop. Really nice. But at the same time, because it's doing crossfading, you will hear doubling sound here, depending, of course, on your sample. But it's really good that you can do that. Something else as well is if you have your loop set like this, that correspond to the beginning of the sample and the end of the sample, if you're trying to do fade in, now you can't. Similar to fade out, you can't. And that's because the loop is set in the same position. So if you make the loop smaller, then you can do fade in and fade out as well. Okay, so just remember that. Now let's remove the loop here. Let's, well, actually, let me show you something else here. You have a menu, 3 dots. Okay, go to function. Okay, oops. And you have a lot of different options. You can also initialize the different parameters here as if you change them. So, for example, let's make it as long as the release, as we have seen. We go to the 3 dots here, the menu function, and then we say initialize since parameter. You can see this has gone back to the default, but not for what you have here on the wave form editor. Okay. So let's continue. So we talked about the snapping here, and this one is interesting. So let's make this a little bit bigger. We click on here and we adjust the view and go to maximum view. We alternate between maximum view or normal view vertically. Of course, that depends on the size that you already have available, but you can see, you should be able to see some of the changes that are occurring. Okay, let's make these a little bit bigger here. And you can see the difference as I'm changing. And you can do something similar horizontally. It just remembers the previous view. So let's say that I'm zooming in like so. I click this arrow, it goes back to the previous view. Click again, it goes back to, it goes back from preview views and total view. Okay, so it alternates, which is really nice. Okay, so that is a quick view of the classic mode. Now, let's move to one shot. Well, this is very simple. You just play the shot, and even if you let go, as you will see, I will move in a moment the cursor of the mouse away from C3, it still plays the sample till the end. Okay, so that is, of course, a little bit different. And of course, we have a slice mode here, which allows you to actually slice the sample in different parts and then assign different part of the sample to different MIDI notes. So let me show you. Let's bring up the play surface here. Let's go down an octave. So clicking on the keyboards, I can select a different part of the sample. Really nice, particularly if you have an external MIDI controller. The other thing as well, you can select the starting key, C1, which is this one at the moment, but you can also set the scale. So you can say, go for only the white keys. I don't want to play the black key. Really nice. So a lot of different options. It's really nice, and they thought about it properly, which is really nice. I wish they do that for MIDI routine, however. So we have mode here. Something else that you noticed, I close the play surface here, and what happens, it reveals the track editor, which is annoying because you have to maximize again the view. That is a bit annoying. I hope they change that. Now you have different modes here. The current mode is transient plus note, so it just picks up where the transients are. And you have sensitivity here. You can click and hold, and actually it doesn't in the control, but you can click on it and you can change the number of recognized transient and note like so, which is quite clever. And what you can do, you can go back also to the 3 dot and function, and then you can say reanalyze transient and tempo, okay, and it will reanalyze that based on what you set. But of course, you need to set the sensitivity also right. But let's say that I move this one here like so, and then I go back to the 3 dots, and then I say function reanalyze transient, you can see it moved this one back to the beginning of this transient, which is supposed to be doing that. So that works really well. Next, you have another mode, which is bit division. It shows you the different bits division based on the tempo you have available, and then you can change the division here. Click on it and then use the dial to change how many division you want over your sample. Additionally, you have another mode, which is equal division, so that it is split the sample in equal division. Then, of course, here you can change the number of slices that you have available. And, of course, the last mode is manual, where you just click and establish the different points where you separate it, click and hold to move them, double click to remove them. Okay, so that is quite straightforward. Now let's go back to the classic view, and let's activate the play surface, and let's play this loop within some notes. So we are on C2, so the play speed is affected by the height of the note. So let's go to C3, it will be faster. Let's go up several octaves, C5. Okay, so that might be a behavior you don't like. So activate flex here, and now press on C4 here. The pitch has changed, but is keeping the original tempo, okay, of your sample. And the other thing you can do is you can set it to follow the tempo, which means that you can, for example, let's deactivate this follow tempo, right? This is what it sounds on C3. Now let's change the overall tempo here. We go to 218. Now if we press again C3, it plays still at the original tempo, but if you click follow tempo, it's following the tempo of the project now. The other thing you can do is when you have flex on, you can decide the speed. So you can say I'll make it twice as fast, which is not great. Or you can also say alpha it, which is really good. So it's quite nice that you have this option to play the sample at the original speed. You can follow the tempo, and you can also adjust the speed when the flex mode is on. Really, really nice. But also, if you play, if you have tempo changes on your project, which I showed in a different tutorial, then you can have follow tempo, and then the samples will play it in different ways, which is quite nice. It creates some unique effect. This again is very annoying. Every time you close the play surface, it does that. Okay, let me show you other function that you have available. Here you can set auto loop. So you click on it and it will try to find an adequate loop for you. Okay. Then the second one is create a loop, an auto loop within the looping area. So we create another loop within the looping area, which was already available. You can retune it. You can initialize in the sync parameter, which is showed. You can re-import the file as original or optimize. You can reanalyze transient and tempo, which I already showed you to you. Now, the next option, derive tempo from loops length. If you find that there are some anomalies in the way that is following at the tempo, you can use this additional function, okay, which is derive the tempo from the loop length. So try it, it will give you a better result. Now, what you can also do, and let's remove the sample here. Let's say that we change the end of the sample, the marker there. Let's go back to the function. You can say crop the sample, so we'll crop the last part after the end marker. Or what you can also do, you can set a loop, and then you can say like so, go to the function, and you can say crop the loop, so we'll keep just that loop. Again, a lot of different function. It's nice that you have all this function available out of the box, so it's really good. Now let's continue the exploration. You have also the ability to create a drum machine design track, or also copy the MIDI pattern, and this is really cool. Again, you need to be in slice mode, okay, and let's say that we're trying to reanalyze the transient, and let's do it again. Let's say if Actually, it is in manual mode. So let's set this transient node. There you go. Now, let's say, and let's do this again to ensure that it is optimized. Perfect. Okay. Let's say that I want to create, from the function here, from this loop that you have there, a drum machine. Click on it. And look, you have a pad sample. Let's close the play surface. You have this additional track. Okay, you have a MIDI region if you play there. So it's playing all the different keys, because if you select that region and you go to the piano roll editor, you have all the different keys to play effectively that sample. Really nice. And then if you close the plugin editor here and you expand the drum machine designer, you find all the different part of your sample assigned to the different tracks. So works really nicely. Really, really nice. Now, let me show you something else. Let's undo that and let's go back to the plugin editor and double click on the sample. Again, maximize that. So let's reload that loop. So let's open this up like so, drag and drop original sample like so. Let's go to slice view. Now, what you can also do is click here and just say on the function, copy to MIDI pattern. Now, after it has done that, close the plugin editor, go, for example, here and say paste at playhead. There you go. So now let's click play. And you can, of course, edit the region again using your piano roll, which is really nice. And based on the height of the note, you have different samples. So this is absolutely amazing. So I really love this. So let's undo, 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 undo. Now let's go back to the quick sampler and maximize again the view. So other things you can do here, you can optimize sample gain. You can optimize the start of the loop and also the fading in the end of the loop. You can decide how to do crossfading in the loop, if they follow a linear mode or more an exponential way to do that. You can change the display. At the moment it is showing second unit. You can say show sample unit, which is, you might find that handy. Or for example, you can say display bit units. Okay. The other thing you can also do, and let's reset these to the default like so. You can display a stereo channel or a mono sum. Okay, you can see that is sum, but it's mono, or you can go back to stereo and you can see those two channels stereo. Now let's continue the journey. Here you have an option for MIDI, of course for MPE. Here you can have, for example, if it is on, you can have each sample responding to different channels based on channel 1 or channel 16, as you prefer. And then you can affect the band range, pitch with the exclusion of the bass channel based on the different notes. Okay, that's a nice one to try. Now, let's maximize this up and let's go back to the classic view. Let's remove the loop at the moment. Perfect. Of course, that is C1. Let's play flex. Now, let's actually go to slice. Start key, we just say is going to be C3. Why not? Okay, that's better. Let's remove the flex, go back to classic. Perfect. So we go back to the original sample playing. Okay, so you've seen how to maneuver some of those parameters. Let's move up here. You have some interesting effects here. You have two LFOs where you can decide source and targets. You can have up to 4 routines. Okay, it's really nice. And then for the source, you can select, for example, the LFO themselves or the different envelopes. Or if you scroll down, you have also control messages from your external controllers, which is really nice. Okay, and so for example, you can say LFO1 is going to have as a target, and then you decide. So for example, you can say sample start, or loop start, and then you set the depth, okay, of influence. Of course, then you can let's set this to maximum. You see, started from there. It all depends, of course, on the setting that you have here for LFO1, your rate, for example, how quickly it's moving up and down, and follow this waveform, which you can change from sine, triangle, so a lot of different options. And you can also have each form being bipolar, positive, negative, or unipolar, only positive. So lots of different options. Let's move this a bit faster. The other thing I really like is if you can create some nice effect if you, for example, you do it with loop start. That is something really cool that you can create in terms of deciding which part of the loop is going to be played. Is changing based on the rate here, the LFO, where actually is starting the loop. Of course, let's maximize here. You need to establish the amount here, otherwise it will not work properly. That is my omission. I should have mentioned that a moment ago. So play surface on. So you can create an interesting effect doing it like that. So let's, for example, change again the sample start. And actually, let's remove the looping here, like so. So have fun. You have definitely a lot of different options that you can choose. So here you can decide if to sync it to tempo, so you have different division now. You can do fade in here, you can decide the amount, and you have to wait here a little bit before the option comes back, but you can select fade out and do the same as well there. You can adjust the start of the phase. You can have it poly or mono, so if you can treat different notes if it is poly, or treat the same notes in the same way for in terms of LFO. And then, of course, you can have key triggering, of course, so that the LFO responds to key trigger. Additionally, you can decide to have a further modulation, okay, on the amount by another target, okay, and of course here you can choose the final target for your LFO. So again, sample start, and now let's look at that. You can see starting by different amount and different position based on the amount, and you can also say go by LFO for further modulate the start. And you have even more chaotic behavior up there. Okay, so a lot of different options, and of course when you have LFO to, like in this case, via an additional envelope, you have a range now that you can select, which goes away when you set via. Okay, again, I do love to do something by looping, like so. It works really nicely. Particularly if you're making the loop a little bit bigger. So it's really nice. You can create some very interesting effects. Let's remove key trigger as well. And it doesn't continue from the previous position, as you can see, so it looks more random now in terms of that starting. Of course, here you have a target of LFO as loop start, but then you have a modulation metrics which says sample start. Okay, so as I mentioned, you can decide up to 4 different modulation routine, which becomes really a lot of fun. Here you have a pitch envelope, and here you can decide, for example, to establish that envelope down here. Click here, and then you make your adjustment. In this case, you have selected attack and decay, but you can change here, and you can go to different type of envelope. Okay, and here you can set how it responds to velocity as well. You can decide the pitch, coarse, and fine adjustment, how long it takes to glide, and the depth here, and the band range as well. And if you want to do key tracking, which will spread it according to the key you press. Okay, and let's make these longer. And let's make the influence here maximum. And you can see the change here on the envelope on the course here, which is really nice. You can do the same now on filter. You have a filter envelope as well. Similar control, cutoff, resonance, drive, key scale as well, which spread you around your keys, and then the envelope depth. And then, of course, you set the type of envelope type that you want. And here you select the type of filter, so high pass filter, for example. And not moving very quickly on that. So let me change the parameter here for the cutoff. Yeah, you can see it's going up here. Okay, and then you have an amp envelope as well. Again, I showed that a moment ago, but you can click here and establish your typical ADSR, which act on your envelope. Again, you can change the type here, how it is affected by velocity, and then you have adjustment for pound, the number of voices, which becomes very important, up to 64 for playing, and of course the volume. Here you can hear I have a filter enable, I have coarse enable, and I have amplitude enable with a long release. And of course, let go. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and found it useful. And as always, see you next time. Bye.